I've been on a spiritual path for 47 years. And one thing I am very clear about is spirituality is not serious. We make it serious, but it's not serious. There's a lightness in spirituality.
Welcome to Back to the Future podcast. My name is Victor Sadia, and I talk with brilliant minds and hearts of people who want to uproot and transform the current health and wellness paradigm. Rupda is an internationally known somatic therapist, personal development coach, group facilitator, and a certified somatic experiencing practitioner trained at Peter Levine's SE Institute. Her diverse background includes collaborations with Tony Robbins in business mastery and leadership, along with studies in quantum physics, family constellation, EMDR, mindfulness, and stress release techniques. In this episode, Rupda shares a bit of her childhood when she was homeless and taken away by social services. By the time she was 7, she began to live in a Tibetan monastery where the monks did not speak her language. These early experiences shaped the way she felt about her position in the world and how, through living in community and through spirituality, she was able to become what she is today. In the conversation, Rupda emphasizes the importance of laughter, resonance, and embracing the unknown as crucial elements in personal and spiritual development. She shares insights on how safety, trust, and a profound presence within oneself can lead to profound transformation, highlighting the role of the body as a truthful guide in this journey. We also talk about self-leadership, modern spirituality, and the power of retreats. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Today we have Rupda. Rupda, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
So less than 48 hours ago, I just returned from an 8-day primal retreat to heal the inner child. So in a sense, I am a brand new baby now. And I've been thinking a lot about the special place we call retreat. I sincerely believe that this is a place from another world that we are invited to visit. How does it feel in your body when you think about a retreat? And what does this concept mean to you?
Well, retreat's quite an old word, and it's been in reference to many different things in our ancestors. And, retreat into the forest, retreat with oneself. The Buddhists use it as an internal retreat. And for me, because my background in the mid-70s is Buddhism, it means to go in, to unplug from the outer world and plug in. And of course, when I think about it in combination with people, it means that I'm about to go on a voyage, in a journey and explore, expand, experience, embody, which is what I love to do. So the retreat in many ways is for your soul to nourish your inner beings. And I love it. And I feel we all need it.
Yeah, I love this definition of just going in. That's beautiful. I was listening to a video from you, and you were telling a story that when you were for the first 7 years of your life, you did not talk. You were non-verbal child. And as you know, Osho said that this was the best thing, not to teach children to speak in their first years. Obviously, he suggests to let the child wander in nature. And probably this is different to what you had in your first 7 years. Can you tell me a little bit about this non-verbal child and what does it mean to have this possibility to be welcome into this world without speech language?
Yeah, Victor, I'd love to say that it was an invitation to explore the inner world and that there was something poetic about that experience. But what it was shock and trauma. And I didn't know then that I didn't speak. I had to be reminded by my mother and by the school system that was keeping me in the boarding school. And from that perspective, I just remembered being an observer. And I remembered not knowing how to speak, and I remember my mom not speaking with me. And it's not because she didn't want to speak with me. It's also because she had her own shock and trauma. So it was a generational trauma in a way. So from that perspective, it didn't allow me to speak to the cues that were happening. And when I mean by cues, about what was not okay, things that were happening, things that I saw, things I was experiencing, to be able to verbalize that and say, hey, this is not okay. So in the end, I internalized it, which is not what I'm ultimately hoping for. But what it did do is it allowed me to look for nonverbal cues. And that's why the Tibetan Buddhists that didn't speak English were so fascinating to me, because I could see what safety looked like. I could register it in my body, and I could go, okay, here I am safe. And that was really important for a little child that was in shock and often looking for where they are secure, safe, and, reliable in a place,
Yeah, I'd say that even if you start speaking at 2 or 3, I believe that the child will always speak the language of safety through the body instead of from speech. Like, that's an intergenerational evolutionary thing in a sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, the wisdom of our bodies is incredible. But we're fascinated more and more now is that children, they're already switched on. There's already, synapses and markers going off, triggering in their brain. So they're already understanding way more than we thought back in my age, Jen, and before. Yeah, so I give a lot of credit to these children's wisdom of how they follow and flow with their body. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that at least in the Western world, we equate like humanness with our ability to communicate through words. And as you know, the separation between mind and body and all that. I would just now, when I hear you, I say, that we're inviting back the wisdom of the body to our Western consciousness and Western science and Western medicine and Western psychiatry. I would love to somehow invite the body back in its own terms, not just trying to intellectualize what the body's trying to say, because the body will never speak English,
I want to say a little bit about how I work when I started to really understand this nonverbal aspect of what I do in my work and how I brought it in. Because I've been doing therapy for 47 years. I grew up in retreats, workshops, seminars, yeah? And I observed thousands of people. And now I've worked with thousands of people over the last decades. And what I notice is the first thing I'm doing is I'm getting your agreement. I'm getting your, the rapport of trust. If I don't get your trust, I get resistance. Understandable, because we all have that deep need to feel safe. And so the head center is what I'm working with. But the head center has the unconscious and the conscious part, as you know. But I also work with 4 centers of intelligence. And that's the head center, the heart center, and the belly center, which is the body. And then there's the 4th center, what I include in my work, which is the unknown, yeah? Which for me is where the magic happens, where transformation happens, not in this, I need to know. Because of course we have academia and we all love to be highly academic, but then there's this unknown part, the mystery, yeah? And I love it because that's where aha moments happen. That's where I let go, a release, a surrendering, and this for me is where the work in the years that I've seen, where so much starts to shift, yeah? More than we can write in a book, yeah? So why I mention this is because the belly center, when I bring in the wisdom of the body never lies. You can be telling me one thing, like, let's say somebody comes to one of my workshops and they go, yeah, Rupda, I'm okay, yeah, I'm okay, yeah, I'm fine, relaxed. But I can see in their breathing, I can see in their, movements of their body, they're not present, they're not able to be still. That's a very simplified way. But I go into so much resonance through these centers that I can already pick up signals in their body and go, what's happening here? And they go, huh? And there's such disconnect from their body. And they go, oh, right, yeah, I was hit here, or I had to protect myself here. So the body, even though it doesn't necessarily verbally speak, it is speaking to us in the nonverbal all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I love this. Let's break it down into the unknown and also the body never lies, which in the retreat I was just in, I was amazed how the retreat leader, when communicating with a person, when we were in the group sessions, like she got those body cues right away. But I sensed that it was not a mind training that when a person goes to the left, then it means this. When they blink their eye, it means that. It was really her body just resonating with the body of the person.
That's it. It's resonance. Yeah. It's not textbook. It's definitely not textbook, because I never know what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden I feel this heat coming here. And I'm like, what the? Can I swear, by the way, or I'm not allowed to swear?
Swear as much as you need, please.
Okay, bueno. What the fuck is this? Oh my God. And then I just ask, what's happening? Is anything happening for you here? And they go, yeah, And then all of a sudden a download from them comes. And I have no idea why it's coming. I just allow myself, I get out of my own way and I go into resonance with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how you get out of your own way and you stop projecting things into the other and allow for that to come in. That's a lifelong journey. How does that has worked for you?
So, I sat with Buddhism and I sat with a mystical Indian teacher for so many years. We're talking about thousands of hours of silent sitting. Yeah, that allowed me to tune into my own tuning fork, which then allowed me to not only inner orient, but also outer orient to other people's tuning fork. Now, this place also allowed me to tune into the unknown. Yeah. Oh, wow. What is this place? Now, my mind, my part of my mind that it gets the need for control starts to freak out. But then there's another part of the mind that goes, oh, let's lean into this. Now, I say this because when we lean into the unknown, so much messaging comes. Yeah. And I don't even know if it's always words. It's just sensations, feelings, all sorts of things. Yeah. And then this almost resonance with the unknown. So there's a beautiful sentence I often say in my retreats. Intimacy is a love affair with the unknown, because it's like, wow, yeah, if we really can allow the unknown. But then also what comes in the unknown is intuition, because I couldn't have, calculated it in my head. Yeah. But this intuition starts to emerge when I really start to open up and allow. You said the word allow, Victor. It was perfect. Yeah. And by allowing, I get out of my own way of what I think it should be. The word should is very dangerous when you start to work with individuals and groups. Yeah. Victor, you should, it doesn't really allow. Yeah. So when that starts to happen, then of course I'm no longer in this place. I'm in this place, open to the unknown. Yeah.
And how was it with you the first times where you allowed yourself to be in that place and to receive the resonance of the other, and not really knowing what was happening, if it was yours and if it was theirs? It's a scary place because you are absorbing so many unknowns, but they hurt so how did you manage to keep that space open?
Yeah. Now, that's a very good question, Victor, because you asking this question that has been asked of me hundreds of times, because I do a leadership work for facilitators who really want to step into this work and say, Rupda, I want to learn how you do what you do. Yeah. And you're so spot on, because what we're now dipping into is boundaries, not only external boundaries, but internal boundaries. Where do I begin and where do you end? What is your energy? What is my energy? What am I taking on that's not mine? And how do I somehow find a way that I don't take on too much and then I lose my grounding, I lose my sense of self. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I go home feeling overwhelmed, overloaded, and burnt out. Yeah. And this is what can happen to therapists if you don't know how to keep this internal boundary clear. Yeah. And what I can say to that in a simplified way, yeah, is that it's a lot about staying present with yourself and having a kind of know thyself kind of consciousness. Here I am in my body. Here's where I begin. Here I am in my consciousness, in my awareness, my spatial awareness. Victor's there. I am here. What Victor shares, if he comes out with a big trauma, let's say, and often, you know how it goes, somebody shares something that is very close to your own personal story, right? And it can activate the field and also activate the person who's facilitating. But I have to make a very clear internal boundary. What is Victor's is Victor's. And what is mine is mine. And this running narrative is in my system with holding presence, very solid presence, with myself. So I don't abandon myself and I don't lose myself in the space that we are sharing. That can be very intimate sometimes because you're sharing some of your biggest things, And that's a practice, Victor. And that's why I teach it in the facilitator training, because people are like, wow, Rups, this is a hard.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said the word that I was getting to, which is practice, because at the end of the day, so many things are happening. And at the same time, you need to be at ease with it, be relaxed, be inviting the other to keep sharing, while at the same time, you are keeping so many narratives, feelings, emotions, things happening. So I think practice will make you more familiar with that place. And I can sense that you are, even in this podcast, recentering yourself as you are talking and bringing your awareness, at the same time you are listening to me. And it's like many worlds in one.
Beautiful. I like that. Yeah. And there's a beautiful word called relaxed presence. And I love the know thyself, because the more you sit in stillness, remember the meditation is so important, the more you get to tune into the I and the consciousness that is witnessing the I. And this internal boundary, sense of self, yeah, that is felt sense of who I am. And that really helps me and allows me to be fully present with another without losing myself. And as a therapist, a facilitator, a coach, this edge that you spoke about is the one that people bring up the most in the training. How do I not go home with all that stuff? Yeah.
And do you believe that part of that sense of yourself, the felt experience of being yourself, came also when you were a small child and you felt safe, but you didn't have language to name it? And so a deep part of yourself knows that's not a verbal place.
Beautiful, Victor. It's really enjoyable talking with you, by the way, because I love that question. And, in the mid-70s, when I was at the Buddhist monastery, my mother said that I was 7 years old, that I would get up at 6 a.m. to sit with them. And they were chanting Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, Om Mani Padme, and singing, and I got to learn the mantras. Beautiful. And I learned that sense of stabilization, groundedness through the body and through the chanting and through their presence, because they were a living embodiment of what it means to be present. So I got that full kind of experience. And then I, of course, started to bring it into my own experience. And children have less filters and less conditioning, so we can absorb more in a way. And that was just such a beautiful thing to absorb. So I had a very clear registration of what it means to be in meditation, to be present, to be still.
Wow. And I'm thinking about other animals and other mammals who I think have the same, it just got to me that probably, when we hear whales talk, it's not that their voice, it's a voice. It's just a physical manifestation of a presence, in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We interpret it as, he must be saying hello, and the other one must be responding, how are you? But I believe it's more like a somatic, bodily, just entire presence, which presumably they are always in. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we are also sentient beings. So even as you meet somebody on the street, a familiar friend, we can already, as we're walking up to that person, we can already sense where they're at, where we're at, and the spatial awareness between us. It's amazing what can happen so quickly in real time. And we can already sense if we're safe or if there's a perceived threat. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious about that. You're telling me about all these experiences in many retreats all over the world. You have taught other facilitators to do the work, and you have also presumably taken a lot of retreats and as a participant and working with a lot of workshop facilitators and retreat facilitators. How a specific methodology will shift entirely depending on the person you have in front.
You mean what sort of what approach might I use with the person in front of me? Is that what I hear you say?
So let's say I learn a methodology from you, and another person learns the same methodology.
Yeah.
But once I'm guiding something and that person is guiding another one, the experience will be completely, I think, different, even though the methodology is the same.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what I love about each person coming in and bringing their flavor, because you will have your own unique flavor, which is beautiful because none of us is copy paste. It's still hard to believe that 8 billion people and not one person is identical. Yeah. That whatever we want to call it, existence, universe, nature has created such uniqueness. And so the way that you're going to approach something is going to be completely different. And by the way, when I am working with someone, and I work a lot in real time, remember I mentioned I work with the unknown. And working with the unknown means when somebody puts up their hand and says, hey, Rupda, I want to work with you. And I said, you want to come up on the stage and we work together? I have no idea what they're going to say. And I have no idea what's going to happen. But often I'm completely blown away because I get out of the way. And I just start tuning into them and the questions and the flow and what they say. And then somebody else might come in. I might bring another person in. And next thing we know, we're in this amazing kind of experience together. And the tool that I'm using, I never even know, because I know many, many different tools. And I don't know which way we're going to approach something. So, and that's why I love the unknown, because if I take the position of I don't know, let's see, let's be curious, then I feel like something much bigger happens, like one little brain over here could, conspire.
Yeah. And yet at the same time, when you are allowing the unknown for let's say a retreat session to occur, there must be a lot of knowns for the participants so that they feel safe and contained. So at the same time, you're also managing the room and the temperature and the music and the lighting and because at the end of the day, you have to give very clear instructions so that people have a sense of safety of something that is known, so that they can really unleash the unknown.
This, I really love what you're saying. And by the way, you're a great interviewer, Victor. I just want to say it again. Because it's exactly what, remember I said in the beginning, I have to get the agreement through the head center. I have to build the rapport. Why the fuck should I trust this woman? They come in, they all sit in. And if I get their trust within, half an hour to an hour, which is often the case because they can already feel me, I make myself available, reachable, and accessible to them in such a way where they can feel my sensitivity and they make connection. And when people feel like, wow, you're being true, you're being honest with them, immediately establish this feeling, I can be safe here. And then from there, I also talk about the structure. I also prepare their nervous system, because trauma is, I didn't have choice. So when I tell them what's about to come and the structure, they already start to get, they're prepared, their nervous system, because often I'm working with their nervous systems, yeah? And the trauma in the case of many people is too much, too soon, too fast. So I slow things down. I help them to feel. And that creates that sense of, okay, we're going here. Here are the bounds of the room. Here, just like you said, the temperature. Here's the time frame. Here's the four walls of where we're going to be. And, okay. And this is what we're about to explore. Great. And now, just like you said, now I can really let go. If you want, no one is pressuring you. In fact, I work in the realm of choice. Even though I love the unknown, you always have choice to say, I want to go this far, 1 inch or 1 feet, meter, whichever metric system you use.
Yeah. Wow. And tell me something about humor. Because when you are in total presence, jokes, swearing, laughing just comes spontaneously. And at the same time, that can break a specific trajectory of a person talking or a group engaging in something quote unquote serious. How has your relationship with humor in those let's say full sessions, fullness, full of fullness, humor plays a role without really being a conscious thing that you invite, but happens spontaneously?
Yeah. Thank you again, Victor. Great question. And this is actually something that I specialize in. And I want to say a little bit of backstory as to why. Because when I was 7, I came back from boarding school. And I didn't know that my mom was in a depression. And I didn't know what was going on with her. But I just remembered she was sitting on the sofa a lot, and often in tears or lethargic, despondent, depressed. And I didn't understand what was going on. Now I do, yeah? So back then, how I coped, what my strategy was to survive in that situation, and also to get my mother to realize I'm in the room because the depression was so big. I used humor. I became this kind of little stand-up comedian in the living room because it was just me and my mother. There were no other siblings. And so I noticed that when I started to make jokes or put on her big coats and big shoes, she started laughing. And now I started to get connection with my mom. So a positive association started to happen. When I'm humorous, I get connection. So of course you can imagine that positive association then continued in my adult life, because I started to see that when I was in the high school, it worked. And when I was in my adult life, it worked. And I was like, wow, this is beautiful. Now, there's something you said about around when we start to go into deep core issues, we can get very serious. Yeah. And I want to say, I've been on a spiritual path for 47 years. And one thing I am very clear about is spirituality is not serious. We make it serious, but it's not serious. There's a lightness in spirituality. So what I started to notice, because 20 years ago, I really got into working with trauma, and I decided to see how can I bring in lightness into the center of trauma, which is like some people go, no fucking way, not possible. But of course, my curiosity had the best of me. And I noticed just by very respectfully, and this is the key word, Victor, respectfully, I would be working with somebody on the stage and sometimes in front of many, many people. And in the core of their biggest trauma, and some of them, these traumas are like really shocking, like I can't believe that happened and you survived. I will just say something very light, and all of a sudden in their trauma vortex, yeah, it's like they tunnel vision. They can't see outside of it, yeah, and you can already see the activation when they talk about it, yeah. And then I just say something really light to break the spell, and then they start giggling, and then the whole room giggles, and then everybody takes a big breath, And I'm like, you survived. Yes, we survived. It's just like what the animals do. They have a big shake, when the deer is being chased by the tiger, right? Or the lion. And to get that to happen, I was like, wow, it's possible. So now I bring in humor very respectfully, but it works and it breaks people out of this trauma spell and gets them to feel lighter and gets them also discharge some of that fixed, oh my God. And some of the stories people have, can I ever be with in a job, or can I ever do public speaking? Can I ever have another partner? Can I this, that, and then they could start to see differently. And lightness helps us to see differently. And humor brings lightness. Yeah. So thank you for that question, because I'm passionate about it. Humor.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And in a sense, it's like it's an unconscious thing also. When you are, when you allow these many worlds to happen in you, laughter and lightness is part of that. And it just finds its way, not only as a survival mechanism, but also as so to complete the full experience. We need it. And yeah, so the next question probably would be, how, if you're an expert on this, how do you work this with the people who learn from you? Because comedy and laughter and being humorous, I don't know, but probably comes from early stages of us, like in your case.
Yeah.
What happens when a person, yeah.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because we have to be very careful, because sometimes I do work, let's say in the UK, and in the UK, they're very good at sarcasm, which is ouch. That wasn't really funny. It was, in a way, it was criticism. Yeah. Yeah. And that's not what we're talking, because somebody will close. Yeah. And when somebody closes, then you lose trust with them, and the client won't feel safe anymore. So you're right. We have to be very careful. Is the humor coming from a very clean place, and to bring lightness, not to obviously make them feel even worse. That's not what we're coming from. And in one way, you could argue that humor is a talent. Yeah, not everybody has the ability to, be like Robin Williams, that humor. And in another way, I do believe that we can practice lightness in ourselves, but we have to be friends with lightness. We have to be friends with humor. And if you're someone who's always really serious and you come into my training and I don't know how to, then I'm going to suggest for you to practice, like, even if I tell someone, and I have told someone this, to put on a red clown's nose and just walk down the street, just to the shop. And because to be able to kind of play outside of our box, our very, very strict, serious mind construct is important, because we also need to use all of the shades of our humanness. Now, I also want to say, I don't use humor to bypass feelings. Let's be very clear. I'm all about feelings, because through feelings, we can start to meet ourselves in a different way. We might have to go through pain, to feel love, but the feelings are really important. And I just want to make sure that your listeners know that. Yeah.
I love this. I love this. How it's like how we use our humanness to bring our humanness back, with all which which entails.
Yeah.
And be aware of those voices that say, no, that's not appropriate here. That appropriateness is so traumatic, and it repeats the trauma. That's where I see that the nonverbal part is so useful, because when you don't have something to put an adjective to, a description to, then you go back to that lightness that feels without constraint, because there's no verbal world reminding you what you should be doing or not.
Yeah.
And I think you talk a lot about self-leadership, and the leadership and business world, and we all want to learn about leadership and how to lead better companies and better groups and better families. But in a sense, it's also a non-verbal thing. And the business world doesn't like the unknowns, doesn't like,
Yeah.
we want the 5 steps. Even if they are difficult, at least they are clear.
Yeah.
And so how can we also keep defining this leadership without the usual words of being clear of what we mean, and just jump into, you lead with no methodologies, no words, through the unknown, through that intuitive part. And as much as you allow yourself to be that, paradoxically, you will be a better leader, and people will know how to follow, in a sense.
Yeah. That's a challenging one, because until people actually start to work with me, and usually they come to a retreat or a workshop, and then they go, oh, okay, I want her to come into my company. And that's how I ended up working with big companies in Europe here. And because they saw me embody it. Yeah. And that is the best way I can say, if anyone wants to bring in this kind of work into their corporate environment, or to be a coach working with corporate, embody it. Be a living embodiment of this working with the unknown intuitively, because people in that nonverbal pick it up, and they start to feel relaxation around you. They feel it. Even when I'm on a bus or at a plane, people go, wow, who are you? They can feel that connection and just already by your emanating it. Now, I also know that even when I go into the corporate, I still need to give them something. Yeah, like I had the Unilever, which is a big client, and last year we were working with them, and they like a little bit of these steps. So I gave them a little bit, but I said, I want to challenge you in the unknown. Are you open to it? And the moment I say I want to challenge you, okay, we're interested. Yeah, so it's good to give some guidance, and it's also good to get them to play in the nonverbal, because remember, when you're kids, you're playing in the playground, and they're just playing. They're so in their aliveness in their bodies, and in the end, what do they leave with, Victor? When they leave any big download of training or learning, they leave more remembering the feeling, and 15 to 20% of the content, the feeling of what it made them feel. And I know that because the testament I get is people writing back going, fuck, this was amazing. Do you do this here? Can you come here? So it's resonating in their own body. Yeah. But you're right. It's not the easiest thing for me to mark it on a piece of paper and say, hey, come, let's do something in the unknown. No, I have to meet them where they're at, match their energy, and then get them to come and play in the playground with me. And then they go, yeah. But it takes a bit of time,
Yeah, I love this. And I as you, I also work with a lot of health professionals, and I give courses and organize congresses and retreats. And it's the same with a health professional. They're used to, give me the science, give me the literature, give me the steps, give me the success stories, give me the case studies, the clinical trials. So you meet them there, and then you allow for these things, those insights to come spontaneously to them, not as a topic to be taught as in a classroom, but as an experience to be had, each one individually in their own way and at their own pace. And sometimes, and I see a lot of this, and probably you too, is that health professionals don't like to be out of their what is happening now, especially physicians and medical doctors. So for me, it's been a challenge, a fun challenge, and a very healing challenge and practice. But how would you keep approaching health professionals who are like being called into these spaces of the unknown, whatever you might call it, energy, or just changing worldviews, and meeting them with their words and methodologies, and at the same time making them feel they are safe when exploring other identities.
Yeah. It is a challenge because of their, they often are academic mind and they're research science based. And, but the good news is I get people coming in who are, PhD experts in this, or doctors and professors and so on. And they are curious. And to get their agreement, again, it's all about getting their agreement. I need to give them a little bit of research and facts. And, I'm working with the vagus nerve, and I'm working with, known systems through the body. So they know I'm anyway not somebody who's seaweed and with the fairies, and no disrespect to those who love the fairies. I'm just more down to earth here, working in this framework. Then what I will do, once I get a little bit of that rapport and that trust is really important, I get them to get some understanding about what, is there an area that you recognize that you don't know? Yeah. Time, space, reality. Yeah. Of course, we can always go there because there's so much aspects to the deja vus and serendipitous things. And hey, I was just thinking of you and then you called, and, there's so many things that we don't know. How did that just happen? Well, you just finished my sentence. How's that possible? And, and this energy that we have through the heart. And by the way, I even mentioned things through the heart, that the heart has such an intelligence that it can register things, even with a partner that is in pain in another room, and they put on EKGs, and the other partner can feel the pain of that. And they're just like, what is going on? So these unknowns that they try to, get understandings with, still we don't know. So when I talk about this stuff and I say, would you agree? Yes. Would you agree that we're in a positive and negative charge of energy that's happening in this, force field of what we call that we're orbiting in the Milky Way here? Yes. So we're working with energy. Is that okay with you? Yes. So you see how I go? I go step by step. And I'm bringing them, if I'm really honest, I'm bringing them into the house. I use the house as a metaphor of their own inner being. So I'm not doing anything to them, and I'm not giving anything to them that they don't already know. Yeah, intuitively. I'm just helping them to explore their own internal house. And I love the house as a metaphor because I use it sometimes like the top of the house is where the light and consciousness is, and the basement is where the shadow is and the unconscious. Yeah. And we have many rooms in our house. And to explore your own inner house, to explore your own inner being. And if I can get them to kind of step in this metaphor world, and even is it unknown, sometimes I get their yes, and actually most of the time, otherwise they wouldn't come, because the moment you see me in a video or even in this podcast, you're going to get a feeling of I'm going to be resonance with you,
Wow, I love this. And at the same time, so I think it's very important also to have other health professionals sharing their experiences so that because even though doctors always, I'm generalizing here, and I'm very, very respectful, obviously, but always want to be, in a sense, in the spotlight. They want to be the important one. They are competitive in a sense. But at the same time, they need that belonging of, I'm not being too weird. I'm not being too out there, and sharing. And so, yeah. So it takes the same way it takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to raise the new health professional. Right?
Yeah. And by the way, I know that there's a stigma today with some doctors because they're in the past, at least my mother's age gen and grandmothers, and they were like God, and that's starting to shift a little bit because people are starting to realize they can heal themselves using different kinds of, even quantum physics, the energy and how we speak to ourselves, that internal narrative. They're starting to see how people are starting to change the alchemy of their sickness, and they can't understand, the placebo effect, for example. But I do love when I see doctors having a willingness to look beyond their textbook of the, I know I'm a doctor and I know better, and to start to step in a little bit into this unknown. and have a willingness to stay open, when we can have doctors that have a willingness to stay open to even, dare I say it, alternative kind of ways of approaching healing and medicine, then we have a doctor that is going to have a much wider range of helping and supporting individuals, because they're more relaxed in who they are. Yeah, they're more confident in that they don't have to produce some kind of be like a god. They can be human.
And also this idea of going back to this need to name everything. Like you can even see the nervous system of a health professional when they can finally name a disease, right? Oh, symptom 1, symptom 2, symptom 3. Oh, that's Hashimoto. And you can see that their nervous system relax as if they already have gotten to the truth. But, naming something, it's also closing it and also finalizing it and also giving you the illusion of control and knowledge, which is a big illusion that will relax your nervous system, but it will also put you in jail in a sense, because that's only the beginning. When you have the name of something, oh, and what the hell is that? More than just biochemical signals that you can track through in whatever diagnostic apparatus, what is that in the big realm of reality? So yeah, and also and that's something that it's not coming out from one definition and going to another. That's why they are very skeptic about going into the woo-woo world, because definitions are very strong there, and they don't like those, and that's okay. The thing is, how do you go to another world without the need to end up naming it? Even if it's a disease, and even if you will be in front of a patient who has the disease, quote unquote, and you will have to provide some sort of guidance.
Yeah. It's because now we're talking more around medicine, and the work that I do is around therapy, but I can give you a framework in therapy, which is same I would do if I was in medicine. And even though I work with the unknown, and I even take a position of I don't know, is when I ask questions, I leave things open-ended in therapy world. Yeah. So it means that they're not fact. I'm not saying that you have ADHD. I don't diagnose people per se, although sometimes people want that because that's the world and conditioning in the Western culture that we have. Give me a diagnose and then I can get a pill and it's done. But sadly, we're realizing that's not how it works. It's not going to the root cause. Yeah. How did I even get to this place? That's what I want to know. So I don't have to be dependent on a pill for the rest of my life. Wouldn't you want to know that? So to do that, the way I work is I do name and frame these two things. And I talk about that in my facilitators training, naming and framing, because that helps people to understand. But it doesn't necessarily mean I'm naming and framing a particular diagnosis, but I'm naming and framing how I do what I do. Let's say if I have, IBS, yeah, it's a very common one today, or ADHD. There's a good one. That's a common one. And I name and frame a little bit of what is ADHD. We talk about it, yeah? But then I'm going to look, of course, around the externals of what that is. And then you find out often, and I have to be very careful with this topic, I realize, but I would, in my view, of course, and I've seen thousands of people, that half of the time the diagnosis was not needed because... And people want the pill, which is because they've got so much anxiety. What I believe it is they've got too much overwhelm and overstimulation in their environment. So they're going to bed with the phone. They're doing way too much in their world. They're taking on too much. One beautiful metaphor is that, you're on stage and you're talking to someone in the audience. Yeah. Now your new normal way of back in the day before we had all these devices, you talk to one person in the audience. Yeah. And now, today, that person, you're having that conversation with that person in your head in the audience, and then all of a sudden another person talks to you. Now you're having 2 conversations. Now you're having 3 conversations. So you're becoming overstimulated in your head, and then you get that anxiety and panic attacks, and you can't be still, and you have restlessness. And the moment I say to people, stop watching news, stop drinking espressos and cappuccinos and tea, start meditating, stop using devices, unplug, go to a retreat, meaning anywhere that you can just unplug for at least 10 days, and then tell me, if you still have ADHD. And you'll be amazed at how many people on the other side of that experience will start to feel themselves again and be able to take a breath. But we have so much stimulation that now we can't even bear it. We're in overwhelm. And of course, doctors don't know what to do with it. And that comes into their practice. And the patient is standing there and they get a pill and they can slowly kind of down. So I do believe half of the issue is overstimulation.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel not overstimulated, but very excited to be sharing these feelings and ideas with you. Well, just to finish up this conversation, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart to just agreeing to do this without knowing me and being open to the experience. And yeah, really thank you for the kind of work that you're doing. Tell me a little bit about, who's Rupda today and where are you walking towards? And I know it's not the destiny, but just the road that you are manifesting every day.
Manifesting, yes. Yeah. In the many years, I did many different workshops, and I love them. They're all beautiful workshops. And recently, me and my team, I work with a team of people, we looked at everything and we decided to take everything off the table and only leave two things on the table. And that is the facilitator's training, because I'm really passionate about people learning how to do this work, because we have 8 billion people and we have mental health issues on the rise. So we really need people to step into this work in whatever context, whatever industry, and to start working from a deeper place, where we're really human to human. And I call that heart-led leading. And the other one that I left on the table, let's say I want to continue to work with, is the deep dive. And that's what I'm bringing to Mexico. And the first one we're actually going to be doing starts on October 8th. And of what year are we in? 2024. So that's happening for 5 days. And the deep dive is, I've now condensed a whole bunch of things together into a deep dive, which really gives people the opportunity to look at the biggest cores issue that they have in their life today, whether it's around their relationships, their family, their health, their work, their career. Something is not moving in their life. They feel stuck, lost, depressed, whatever that piece is for them. You come into the deep dive and you have a massive potential to really work through it. And on the other side of it is just transformative. And it's an 8-week journey afterwards. So we really do an integration piece. So you still stay with us in the boat. And the Mexican team that I'm working with, who are greeting my team because we're flying over to Mexico, super excited, Victor, I can't tell you. And we're already now saying that we want to continue to bring it to Mexico. But we start first on October 8th. And
Wow. Well, we'll put the link on the show notes so that people can read about it. And just one last question, because you've been guiding these retreats in Australia, in Germany, in China, I don't know, in whatever.
Yeah.
First of all, what a cool work, like doing deep things with people from many places. Wow. And second, how does that wow factor keep renovating itself and giving you more energy to just jump in another airplane, jump into another time zone, jump into another language, jump into another world, and just connect with all the other people that you've been connecting around the globe with the same programming, the same energy?
You have to be passionate about doing what you do, for sure. I'm so deeply passionate about it because people sometimes go, wow, Rupda, don't you ever run out of compassion? Because I'm listening to that same story. And after a while, Victor, thousands of people later, you start to hear similar threads. Yeah, we all have the same core wounding. But for me, it's like opening up a gift. Yeah, it's like, oh, what's under this package? I'm so curious. And if that wonderment and curiosity and excitement is not there, then you're right. It would be like, oh gosh, I've got to do another one. But for me, it's like, wow, that's the sentence. I get to go to Mexico and start to work there. And I've already been a few times. And 15 years ago, I did a few different retreats there. And I love it. So my attitude and my natural attitude. It's not even something I have to, create. It's just there. It's, wow, I get the possibility to work with this guy or this woman and see what makes them tick and what is their heart's longing. I want to know what their heart is speaking and to feel them, and them feel themselves. Oh, for me, I go excited. Yeah, I could do it to the end of my days. I'm 55 now and I've been doing this for decades. And I hope I can do it for the next 20, 30 years.
Amazing. I feel hope when I hear you, like this is just healing the world, healing reality, healing humans, healing animals, healing the environment, and being excited and passionate and happy and joyous about it is just the only way of going forward. So thank you for being transparent about it, and the same way you say thank you to people who allow you to do it, they also say thank you to you that you allow them to walk those paths. So thank you.
Thank you, Beauty. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm sure we'll be in touch. If I can serve in any way to you or your community, let me know. I honor you, respect you, and I thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much, Victor. Muchas gracias.
Gracias.